Hey there, I just wanted to make a tutorial on how I'm integrating SneakyKitty Games shooter framework with Lyra Starter Project, and just kind of give some of the beginning steps of getting those things integrated. I expect that this tutorial series will just evolve organically as I begin to put things together and figure things out, but I'm finding that the two things play well together and that you can leverage the benefits of both frameworks to kind of create a first-person shooter with the Lyra framework, something that Lyra isn't built to do right out of the box, but leveraging all of the incredible C++ backend code for Sneaky Kitty Games shooter framework to kind of augment the Lyra sample project and move forward quickly and robustly to create a first-person shooter, and in fact, in my case, a true first-person shooter. So I just want to kind of go through the steps on my video on my channel. You might have seen some of the kind of initial tests and things. Just wanted to prove out this is actually going to work, and so far so good. It's working pretty well. So yeah, pretty excited about the fact that these things can play well together. So yeah, if you don't know what Lyra, if you're coming from the Sneaky Kitty Games world and you haven't used the Lyra framework, this is Epic's primary starting point that they suggest you start with, kind of for a game. They built out this pretty incredible framework for you to begin your game with. It has all the like UI stuff, cross-platform, EOS integration. It's easy to integrate with Steam as well, which I've done for another game, and controller support, keyboard and mouse support, all that stuff. So it's got a lot in there, and if you don't start with it, you're kind of having to build that stuff kind of from scratch. And so starting with it, you get all that stuff. But what it doesn't do very well is it doesn't have any kind of first-person capabilities built into it. That's something you have to build on your own, and so that's why I wanted to do this tutorial series to kind of show how to start doing that. So if you are interested in building a shooter, first-person shooter game with procedural aiming, attachment logic, a really good projectile spawning system that's super optimized and robust. That's what you're going to get from Sneaky Kitty Games shooter framework. So combining these two things can lead to some pretty incredible results. So, anyways, just wanted to kind of go over this, how I step by step kind of I'm doing this. I'm in the process of doing it. So, I'm not there yet, but all the way. But just I wanted to do a tutorial at a time to kind of get people up to speed. So that's an overview of what I'm doing. If you're coming in from either angle, from Lyra or from Sneaky Kitty Games shooter framework, that's what this tutorial series is really about. Okay, so the first place to start with is create the Lyra sample project on your computer. I've already done that, so we'll skip through some of this initial stuff. But yeah, create the project. You'll have it on your hard drive. You can go ahead and to get to where that is. And so once you have that installed on your computer, basically, the first thing you want to do is grab the Sneaky Kitty Games shooter framework plugin and put it into your plugins folder. So copy it here. It's best practice rather than leveraging it from the engine. That way, if it gets updated on the engine side, which it does pretty regularly because the game dev is very active, you can kind of pick and choose when you want to update your plugin and bring new functionality, and it kind of isolates it here in your plugins folder. So my suggestion is that you do that. So bring that over to your plugins folder, and then what I normally do is just go ahead and I'm using Writer, so I usually delete binaries and intermediate just off the bat, and then rebuild the modules and start the game. So I've already done all that, and I'm using Writer, and I'm also using you can see I'm using a UE5 source build of the engine, but you don't have to be using a source build. But I just want to be super clear, transparent that that's what I'm doing. I'm using a source build of the engine. Shouldn't change anything that you're doing if you aren't using that, but that's what I am doing. So, and again, this is UE 5.3.2. So that's kind of where we're starting. So that's just want to get to the kind of up-to-date speed on like where are we starting. So once you install this and get the plugin installed and then rebuild the project, you can just either do it from source, or you can just double click this and open the project. I have source build already, You're going to end up with, your Lyra starter game. Go ahead and run the project in Writer or build it in Visual Studio. Uh, Once you go through all the compiling the shaders and everything, you'll end up here. Okay, so this is where the first thing you'll see when you open the project, and and the framework itself is pretty complex, and so I'm going to try to break it down to some extent as much as I can. There's just absolutely no way to cover everything with Lyra in this tutorial series. First of all, because I don't know everything about Lyra. I'm just kind of going with what I know and learning as I go. But I have learned quite a bit about it, and I think it could be helpful. What I impart here could be helpful in getting to where I've gotten. And as I make this tutorial series, you'll see kind of where things go. So just an overview of what the Lyra framework is and what we're doing. So the approach that I'll be taking. So a lot of people might start with trying to modify Shooter Core, which is the built-in like shooter game within Lyra that ships with the game, ships with the sample project. I won't be doing that. So if I need anything from here, I'll be taking it from here. But we're going to start with our own game feature plugin, and I'll show you how to create that and how to leverage everything that's in the primary directory as well as what's in Shooter Core to kind of, when you need it, grab it and bring it into your own plugin and go from there. Okay, so I've started. I'm a little bit ahead of where you'll be. So let me show you how I got to where I actually am. You can see that I already have this little My Game content plugin here. That's this tutorials content plugin, game feature plugin. So let me show you how to get to that place. So basically, once you start with the project, you'll start here. Go ahead and go to Edit and Plugins, and in here you can just click Add. And when you come to this add window, you can choose game feature with content only or game feature with C++. Content only will not have any C++ classes built into it, right off the bat. C++ will have a source directory build file and all that stuff kind of built with the project from the very beginning. It won't have any C++ classes in it, but it will have the directory and all the things that are required to link the project. So you can choose either one. I chose C++ because there is something that I have had to do in C++ right from the beginning, and I expect there will be more things I'll want to do in the future for integrating it with the SneakyKitty game shooter frameworks code. And so I'm choosing C++ from the beginning. Of course, you could choose content only and then add a C++ class. It's up to you. Once you do that, give your plugin a name. So here, I've already done that. My plugin for this particular tutorial is pretty exciting. It's My Game content. So when you do that, okay, so once you do that, and you'll have to do that, you should restart the editor. So let me be that very clear. Once you do that, create the plugin, the first thing you should do to be safe is you'll have this pop up like this, okay? This will be your game feature data asset. It's the first thing that pops up. Save all, shut down the editor, and either start back up with Writer, or if you're not using code, you don't have any C++ yet, restart the editor and come to this. Everything will open up again. Okay, it's important. I found that sometimes with the earlier Lyra builds that this was a problem where if you didn't shut the editor down, you would end up having some serious issues with editing your game feature data plugin. Okay, so once you do that, you can't edit this game feature data asset unless it's set to registered. If it's active, it tells you straight off you cannot edit it, right? So going into making it registered is important. And then if you don't see this for some reason, then you just want to go to your plugins and you want to search for your plugin. So this is called My Game, and you'll see it here, right? So this is the plugin that I just created, and that's how Epic Games works, right? So a lot of their core engine then has plugins that extend it. You're just creating a game feature plugin that extends the primary game, and we can see that now in the plugins folder, right? That we have My Game content here. So first things first, once you've got that done, the first thing you want to do, and excuse me while I refer to notes because this is kind of a lot of steps. The first thing I do straight off the bat is turn off live coding because it can become a problem. So I just disable live coding. So whenever I'm adding new things or code to the game, I don't want to have it live code for me. I want to be able to do that on my own without any issues. And then basically after adding your game feature asset, the first thing you want to do is go into, so this is your game content folder. Everything you make is going to live here in this folder. I'm going to go ahead and set a color so it's easy to find it again. Let's do that. That's fine. Okay, great. So that's my content folder. And in that content folder, you'll have only one asset, this data asset. So the first thing you should do is go ahead and well, let me just discuss really quickly kind of the way that game feature plugins work as a thing. And I apologize for all this extra information, but it's hard to do it step by step without telling you why things are happening, because I'm telling you this is something that you can get lost in very easily if you don't understand at least the basics, okay? So these game feature plugins are independent plugins that, by their very nature, are isolated from each other unless they're given explicit asset to access any other plugin within this half of the directory. Okay. Um, Anything above that relative to the content folder is the base Lyra game. And so anything in here that you have can be accessed. So all the mannequin, the animations, the cosmetic stuff, all of this stuff can be accessed by these plugins um, when given access, and can, by default access all of this. So you should think of this as kind of the base game, and then your plugin is extending this base game. So anything that we want to use in the game, we can grab from here, and we can leave things here if we decide to, or we can migrate them to here. The way I do this is I basically leave things here and duplicate things and leave them here if it's clear that when this game framework gets updated, it's easy to understand what has changed here, and I'm not overriding any of these base classes, okay? But because this is kind of a one-way street where this can reference this, uh, get content here, but this stuff can't reference this unless given explicit access, then only leaving things here that your game feature plugin needs, that other plugins might also need, and other aspects of your game might also need, is kind of a good way of working. And you'll see what I'm doing as we go through that. Okay, so so once my game is created and registered, the first thing we really want to do is come over to the content, and we want to start adding some things to this my game. We're going to extend and give this this game feature some primary actions and those kinds of things. So in input here, okay, so this gets deep very quickly, so it's okay if this takes a little while to get a handle on. So this is your input mapping context. So all right, so I don't like that behavior, so I'm going to go to my editor, go to editor preferences, and close that, and go to appearance and set this to main. Great. And then the other thing I like to do is compile, and always compile on success, so I don't have to save things as much. And yeah, so now go back to the content browser, open this up, pops open here. Great. Okay, so this is the input mapping context that comes with the game. I'm assuming you kind of know what these are. If you don't, then it's something you need to look up. Enhanced input mapping is just the way Unreal is doing their things now. So and this has all of the kind of basic input actions that are being used or leveraged by Shooter Core and the other game features that are built into Lyra. We're not going to, again, like I said, we're going to kind of go from a fresh start kind of perspective. So we're going to duplicate this and get rid of some of those things and only add them when we need them. Whether or not this is good advice for you, it's up to you in terms of your ability level. For me, it's always helpful to just start from scratch and build everything I need back in when it's appropriate, so that I don't get lost in the maze. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a name, right? So I just duplicated it and gave it the name of my game, IMC default my game. Save it, open it up. Let's go to the mappings, and let's get rid of some of these things for now. Okay, we'll add some of these back when we get deeper into this, but for now in this video, let's get rid of these. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of reload. We're going to get rid of dash, auto run, look mouse we want to keep. fire auto we're going to get rid of, and you can either keep or get rid of look stick. It's fine. It's up to you, depending on which input you're using. We'll keep it for now. It's not a problem. So we have move, jump, crouch, look mouse, and look stick, and that's all we really want to have in here just to start with. Again, we can add things back as we go. Okay, so now that we have that, so what we want to do here is basically want to take that and we want to give that to our to our to our game data asset to look for that. Okay, so we're going to add that as an input mapping. Okay, so this whole thing is built on data assets, and so we're going to add a mapping to that. We're going to undo that. We'll go here, and we're going to choose my game, and we're going to do that. Priority is 0 is fine. Priority levels for input mapping contexts just tells Lyra, tells the system which one gets priority over the other if two are active at any one given time. So 0 is by default, it'll be given access. Okay, so now that we've added the IMC default, the input mapping context that we're going to use as our default into this game feature data asset, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and add some folders to our directory. Okay, so the first folders we want to add basically are going to be here at the top level. We want to add a folder called experiences. Okay, we want to add a folder called maps. We want to add a folder called system. Oops. Okay, inside system we want to add a folder called playlists. Okay, and back to the kind of top level here, we want to add a folder called game, and inside game we want to add a folder called character. Okay, and inside character we want to add a folder called cosmetics. Okay, so there's cosmetics, and then back at the top level we want to add another folder called user interface, just for now. Okay, we'll add more folders as needed. Why am I doing that? Well, largely because that's how Lyra's framework kind of does this, right? So within the primary, you'll see that we have experiences and we have system. Under system, we've got experiences and games. So we're trying to kind of keep a similar structure to this and only change it when we really need to. So yeah, so we need those folders, and the reason we need those folders is right now is because we want to go ahead and add those folders to this primary asset types to scan. So from there, we're going to start adding some things here. So the first primary asset to scan, and this is kind of weird, but you have to type this in. So just be careful to get it right, like Lyra experience definition. Right, and then what we're going to choose here is the same exact name, so Lyra experience definition as a type. Has blueprint classes is yes, so we want to be able to make blueprints out of that. And then down here on the rules, we want to always cook this. So every time we build the project, we cook, run the project, we cook it. Okay, so now we're going to do another one here. So this one is going to be oh, sorry, no, one more thing, sorry. So up here in directories, basically before we do that, we're going to choose our directory that we're going to look for this. So primary asset types to scan needs to find where those are going to be. And so if you look down here and find your plugin, here you're going to look for the experience definition under experiences. Okay, so then in here what we want to do is we want to go ahead and do the next one's Lyra user experience definition. Okay, and same name, so Lyra user experience definition, so that's the type, that's the base class. This won't have any blueprint classes associated with it. The directory we're going to look for this one is under playlists. So let's go to plugins and my content and game system playlists. Okay, so there's that one. And then rules here are going to be always cook. Okay, great. So then let's add another one, right? Okay, so this one is going to be called, this one's going to be called map. Nope, let's do Lyra experience action set next, right? And then this one's going to be of the type same name, so Lyra experience action set. Okay, and this one also does not need any doesn't need any blueprints associated with it. The directory we're going to find this one in is in our we're going to hold these is in our experiences folder. So here in experiences, okay. And I think we need map, right? Yep, we need one more. Okay, so this one we're going to cook as well. We'll just cook all of these. Okay, so we're going to we're going to add one more, and this one is going to be for our map, right? Okay, so here we're going to type map, and the object type of this one is world. Let's scroll down and find world. Okay. It doesn't have any blueprint classes. The directories we're going to look for this one, of course, is going to be our maps folder. Okay, so we'll look there, and this one we also want to cook. Okay, great. So these are the different primary asset types we need to create in order to kind of link everything together correctly. We'll have to do one more thing as we go on in the project settings, but related to this. But for now, that's good. Okay. So all right. So now that we're here, let's save that. Should get any errors. Go here. So now that we're at the top level of our content browser, we're going to do one thing now, which is going to be required to get this to be a first-person shooter game. And it's something that we can do now or you can do later. I'm going to do it now, but it's a little bit optional as to whether or not you do it now. But let me just go ahead and do it and show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to be in this folder here, this top level directory. I'm going to go to Tools, add a new C++ class. And I'm going to look for all classes. I'm going to look for a Lyra character. And I'm going to create my own character, okay, based on Lyra character. And even though I'm not going to be changing this character right now, there's a possibility that later on in the tutorial series, as I figure things out, that I might need to. And so it's better to do it now, and you'll see why in a second. And the reason I'm using Lyra character and not Lyra character with abilities is because in the Lyra character framework, the player character, the character that the player plays, has its ability system component instantiated on the player state. And so this is what players use as their base character, but enemies and things that aren't being controlled by our player have their ability system component directly linked to the character class itself. They don't have a player state, so they get the Lyra character with abilities. So because we're a player and we're creating our player character, and our ability system is going to be on our player state, we're going to go ahead and choose Lyra character next. And I want it to be called whatever we're going to call it. So let's just call it my game character, right? And I'm going to put it in a folder called character. And I want it to have a public and private separation. Okay, so now UE extension runtime is not what we want. We want this to live in our game feature plugin. So my game runtime is where this is going to go. And we're going to go ahead and create the class. Wait for this to do its thing. It's going to try to compile the C++ code. It successfully added it. Do you want to see that? No, we don't need to. Don't need to see more details about that. Okay, the compile failed. That's fine. What I need to do here is I think it's in project settings. Nope, it's in editor preferences, live coding. Make sure that's turned off. It is turned off. Okay, anyways. So what we just want to do is we want to save all, okay, and close the editor. and now we're back in Writer. And if we look back in our either Visual Studio or Writer, it doesn't matter. Here's the Lyra Starter game. Under Plugins, you'll see that there's a Game Features, and you'll see My Game here. Okay, and now that we built some source code, you'll see public and private, and you'll see character here, and you'll see my character.h. Okay, and you'll have your private, you'll have your CPP file here as well. So this is what we just did. So the editor's closed now, and so in order to get this back up and running, all I need to do is go ahead and build the project real quick. This takes a second. And so there's a reason that while this is building, I'll just explain why we're doing this. So, if I open up my character.h, close the README file, there's nothing in here, and it's extending Lyra character. In fact, so, we have this include here. Okay. So yeah, so basically we need to add reference to this module. So you're going to get this right off the bat. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and edit our mygame runtime build.cs. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple things here. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the shooter core runtime build file. So I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to open ours. Okay, so shooter core has all of these modules. If you're new to C++, then this is basically yours. So you can see how empty it is, and you can see how many of the modules that shooter core needs. So public dependency module names. What it's complaining about right now is that we don't even have Lyra game as a game module that we're referencing, and so we want at least this. But as we go forward, we're going to want more than just this. So I think it's probably just best to let's go ahead and add these modules. We're going to want a lot of these modules anyways. In fact, I can't think of any of these modules here that we're not going to want. So because they're all pretty much base level stuff for dealing with enhanced input and subtitles and the UI stuff and gameplay tags and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and let's add these to ours. Okay. So under public dependency modules, we have Lyra core. Oops, let's go ahead and just add all of these here. Right, okay. So those are there. And then let's look and see what are we missing here. We got engine slate and slate core. Engine slate and slate core, and we need all these. Okay, so we need all of these. Great. So save this. Okay, cool. Okay, save all, and let's try to build again. So this time we'll build again.